You know, no organization can exist without a vision, without someone to give it the motivation and the thrilling leadership that it needs. The one thing that I can say about this next person, one single word: perseverance against all odds. And I have been around this man for a number of years, and I can assure you, perseverance has caused all this today. May I introduce to you now Gwen Coniker, the founder of the Family Apostolate.
I believe God is giving us an extra grace now in America to be used as an instrument of His mother to sanctify the world. Totus tuus, totally yours, Mater Ecclesia, Mother of the Church.
It became clear quickly that his love for the church and family really were where it all began and where it all started. I have met spiritual people in the past, but I have never met a man who had come from business and left a brilliant career to dedicate himself solely to follow the path of the Holy Spirit in his life.
But I found out in 1971 that this was a spiritual battle. It was not a political battle. And then all my work in political work was for naught unless we had basically a spiritual vanguard. So the Pope said the 21st century will either be a century of religion, a great century of light, or not at all, great darkness and destruction. So why did we start the Apostolate? That's why. I mean, we started it because the family is under attack. And we just knew if we couldn't get to parents and get them to love the Lord, know their faith, practice their faith in an intense way, so that our kids can hang around their kids with the same values, our children would be in trouble.
They were a bit shaken and alarmed that the families surrounding them were not understanding what was going on in society and how that was going to have a negative impact on their children. They didn't feel like there was anything around for them that could support them as parents in their mission of passing on the faith to their children, of raising their children to be God-loving, God-fearing children. And because nothing existed, my father took it upon himself to build up a ministry that would be what they wanted to have for their children.
You know, that was his big idea of, we got to get families together and to support one another and to live the faith together. He was concerned for other families. In fact, that was one thing he used to repeat. So he realized, we got to get families together so that my children can see that there's other families that have our faith.
He ended up selling his business and taking a big risk and moving to Fatima, Portugal with his family, thinking he was going to start a business and separate his family from the secular world of the United States. But ultimately it meant for him to be in prayer at the Basilica, and then eventually within 2 years he was then back in the United States with the direction of the bishop there saying, take the message of Fatima back to America. And so that's what he did. And so he started the Apostolate for Family Consecration in 1975.
The ministry was founded at a time where there were not many lay-run ministries.
There was a lot of opposition from people within the church, outside the church. He was a founder, but a lay founder, not something that was very common back in the 70s and 80s for sure.
So he was walking in new territory, but I saw him with a conviction, with a vision, and a call from God to go forward no matter what the obstacles were.
And if we are going to survive as a nation in the 80s, we're going to have to get back to God. We're going to have to live a life of consecration, of total commitment to Jesus through Mary in union with St. Joseph.
So I walked away from the first of several visits down there at Kenosha, really sensing that I wanted to be a part of them, not a part of it. It was so personalized for me. Immediately, I just sensed a welcome, a gift of hospitality, and a genuine friendship.
This is a man who knew where he wanted to go, and he did what it took to get there. Because of his leadership and energy, it was easy for people to get in line and follow.
He led through inspiration, and you admired that, and you says, I want to get to the same place that he's going. I don't know if I can do it on my own, but I can do it behind him.
And he led the way for us as lay people who want to be lay apostles. He could get them to do more than they thought, just like he did with me over and over again. But he did it with such gentleness and respect. He was a true lay diplomat.
I believe he was very instrumental in igniting lay people.
He had no problem risking everything with the potential of losing everything for God.
You know, here's a guy that had no formal theological training and yet was reading the great saints and, you know, created essentially his own 40-day consecration.
His work to build up and strengthen families, he rightly perceived that this was a great need.
And then through the encouragement of Father Michael Scanlon, and once again, Jerry packed up his family, along with some young people that were began to be called Catholic Corps, and moved to Bloomingdale, Ohio.
We're here on this holy ground called John Paul II's Holy Family Center. This is a place set apart for true formation in the spirit and the mind of Pope John Paul.
So he spent a lot of his energy, a lot of his time creating the resources for a day such as this, when there is great confusion in the world.
The message itself was clear, it was concise, and it was accurate.
He captured some of the greatest teachers in the church on video and preserved that for generations to come.
None other has connected the hierarchy of the church with the layperson like the Apostle for Family Consecration.
For the first time in the history of the church, we now have the tools to evangelize our families and our parishes with literally the best teachers the church has.
He really helped me learn better how to communicate the faith to ordinary people, especially family folks.
That's the charism of this work, is to equip families to know the faith, live the faith, share the faith with others.
He developed a motto that all for the Sacred Eucharistic Heart of Jesus, all for through the Sorrowful and Immaculate Heart of Mary, all in union with St. Joseph.
Mr. Coniker's creation brings to the forefront the importance of the Holy Family.
This dual dimension of consecration, that not just a faith, but also a way of life.
Family consecration, and it has two dimensions. It's the de Montfort consecration, which is giving everything to Jesus through Mary, and the other one is consecrating the truth, which is the work and mission of the church.
The more you heard Jerry speak, the more clear it was what it was that was powering the organization and what it meant to evangelize with this spirituality in mind.
He really did have a zeal for the truth and wanting to preserve the truths of our Catholic faith and to allow those to be passed on for many generations.
If Jerry hadn't believed in his dream and followed his dream and embraced the vision, these people wouldn't be there, and they wouldn't be getting the benefit of this evangelization, this catechesis, which then, and this was Jerry's plan, they took home with them and would do that in their parishes.
He's saying that if we get back to God, that if we live a consecrated life, that if we look to God as our source, He will take care of us. And really, this is the mission of the Apostolate for Family Consecration, to systematically transform tens of thousands of neighborhoods into God-centered communities once again.
He always used to say consecration is not just a prayer or a devotion, but it's a way of life nourished through continuous formations. He really wanted people to fulfill what God's plan for their life was.
I think his deep love for Christ and for the church, and his zeal for saving souls.
He gave every drop of his energy and his drive to love God, serve the mission of the church, particularly as it pertains to family and laity.
He was a guy that you knew in his heart he was risking for God. As is a deep love for him.
And you know, gentlemen, anybody that's successful in anything has to risk failure if you're going to be successful. If you're not willing to risk failure, you're never going to succeed in anything worthwhile. If we put it all on the line, the reward will be unbelievable. And if we don't bring America back to a Marian spirituality, if we don't bring it back to a total conversion, there will be a dark age in the world that the world has never seen before. So a lot depends on America. And I know Gwen, the Holy Father and Mother Teresa both thanked my wife Gwen for making this apostolate possible, because they know that if she wasn't backing me, I couldn't do what I'm doing. If she wasn't keeping harmony and unity in the home and overcoming the problems of a husband that travels a lot, that works late hours, if she wasn't making that sacrifice, I couldn't do it.
To say something about Jerry, it wouldn't be fair to say anything without mentioning Gwen as well. I think together they brought balance, talent, and grace to everything they touched at the apostolate.
His years with Gwen and their love for each other and their family unfolded that evangelization till they really understood that that was not just for their family, but it was for all families.
My father was the head. He was the head of our family. He was the head of the household. He was the head of the Apostolate for Family Consecration. And my mother was the heart. So that contribution of the head and the heart, and both of them giving forth their all. So the two of them are essential to the success of our family life and the success of the Apostolate for Family Consecration.
I mean, he has exemplified for me the virtues that I want to attain as a husband, as a father, but especially as a follower of Jesus and as an apostle in the Church of Christ. And so Gwen became, for my wife, not only a role model, but an exemplar also. We saw in them that kind of couple that we wanted to grow into ourselves.
What are you to do? You say all four. And God gives you the grace to discern, to do His will, all for the sacred and Eucharistic heart of Jesus, because that's the very center and source of our life.
When I look back, and I've thought this over the years that I was 33 years working with Jerry and Gwen, and he was a prophetic voice in the world.
It was never about the Conikers. It was always about everybody else. Jerry Coniker, I would say he's an ordinary Catholic man who responded to the call to reach out to others.
He seemed to be without fear. He was willing to take on any kind of a risk. And that's the way things often went with Jerry. But he went ahead to promote what he thought God was asking him to do.
Jerry if he had a focus on something, it's going to happen. And with Jerry, everything is big. And if you're going to do it, you're going to do it big.
So Jerry wore his faith on his arm, and he was never ashamed about his faith. He would never walk away from an argument about the faith, but he always did it in a gentle way and in a kind way.
He realized there is a spiritual battle going on here, and that ignited in him a drive and a passion that never died. He didn't stop for much of anything. He really gave his all to the ministry and to founding it.
He had made a lot of sacrifices, being a family man, giving up everything, giving up a future that the world, could give him. His His mind is always like, okay, what can we do to save families? What can we do to save souls?
He not only developed the mottos, he not only developed the theological approaches, he not only taught them, he lived them.
Whether it was his first days here at Catholic Family Land or his last days, the story, the vision never changed.
Because without his faith and his unswerving fidelity to the truth, many of us and many souls would never have come to know the beauty of our Catholic faith or the road to salvation.
They could bring this richness of the faith to so many people that would never have had a chance to hear. For example, from Cardinal Lorenzi. How would they hear from Cardinal Lorenzi? I've talked to a number of people over the years who have been a part of Jerry's program or seen his tapes and tell me how that changed their lives.
And I would say this is the legacy that he's leaving to the church of the importance of the family and how we need to do everything we can to build up family life.
Jerry, you have touched and inspired many lives with the decisions and choices you've made every day of your life.
Thank you for being a witness to the faith and in this world of ours, which is often faithless. Thank you for being a beacon in a world that is often darkened. I firmly believe he's gone home to the Lord now. He's gone home to be with his beloved wife, Gwen, who was right there alongside him the whole time. His legacy is one of faith and a witness to that faith. Well done, good and faithful servant.
Thank you, and God bless.